Hey everyone, this is the first episode of what I hope will be a series called Decent at Magic. The idea is I'm just a normal player. I like to come back every set, play some drafts, but I've been able to, hit Mythic or get 7 wins in a good amount of drafts. And, I know some other people struggle with that. Some people are definitely way above that, obviously. But if you're someone who, is like me, plays a little bit irregularly, but still wants to have some success, I think I have a pretty replicable way of playing that most people could do, and I sort of wanted to share that with some people. So the first episode is going to be called How to Stay Open in Draft. I'm going to use cards from Bloomborough as my examples, but I think the ideas will be applicable to most sets. So obviously, right, if we want to stay open, we prioritize flexible cards, right? So what makes a card flexible? Well, I first think about the mana cost. Both color, right? Single color cards more flexible than gold cards. Also mana value. Cheaper cards are more flexible than expensive cards because you can only have so many expensive cards that if you pick them early, you're going to have to pick cheaper cards later on. And that's going to limit the options you have. If you have a deck full of 2 drops, you can pick almost any cost later on. If you have a deck full of fives, you're going to have to start taking twos and threes later on, in most cases. Cards that work well in multiple decks, this is similar, to what we talk about secret gold cards. But cards like 3 Tree Scribe, right, is a 2/3 for 2. It's not terrible in every deck, but it's specifically meant to be a blue-green card, and its ability only really works in that deck for the most part. So, that's a more inflexible card than, say, a Baker's Bane Duo, which works well in every deck. Not necessarily a worse card, but less flexible. In cards that are self-contained, cards that need other cards to work are going to be less flexible, obviously. If you have, say, a life gain payoff card, that's going to be, not as good outside of decks that don't have life gain. So even if you are playing, say, the black-white deck, which is the life gain theme, if you don't have the cards that gain life, the cards that pay you off for gaining life are not going to be, super worthwhile. So they're not going to work as in many decks, even if you're in those colors. So here's some cards to avoid, right? I'll start off with gold cards that aren't worth it. Obviously, some cards are worth it, right? Some cards are worth just slamming into those 2 colors. Dream Dew, and Trancer, right? That's one of the best rares in the set. If you pick it, you can just slam blue green. I mean, is that the optimal play? Maybe not, but you're gonna find enough deck because you're playing one of the best cards in the set. Something like Cruel Claw, the infamous Cruel Claw. This is not worth it, right? Even in a red black deck, this is just okay. If you first pick this, you're saying I'm going to play red black and I'm not even starting from a super strong point, right? So that's just not worth it. You've given up all flexibility for a card that just isn't going to pay you off when you draw it and when you can cast it. So, secret gold cards, like I just talked about, 3 Tree Scribe. This is a green blue card in some senses. It's also, cards are so powerful now that this is a 2/3 for 2. You can play this in other decks, but, it's really like it gets paid off in the green blue deck. So if you pick this over a similar, green card that goes into any deck, you're sort of hedging towards green blue. And then cards in colors with bad decks. I think this is particularly true in this format. But so a blue card, right? Shoreline Root, a great card. I first picked this many times. I love this card. I call it a mythic uncommon all the time. But it's in blue. Blue has in this set maybe 2 viable decks, or 2 good decks, we'll say. Green, blue, green, black. So if you pick Shoreline Looter, that's less flexible than a similarly powerful card in a color like green that can go in any deck. Something like maybe Hunter's Talent, which is probably on a similar power level in terms of, the statistics. Um, so because you can only go into 2 other decks as opposed to 4. So that's just, sort of, you know, boxing you in terms of your flexibility. The second thing I want to talk about, and I think this is maybe something that's less talked about, is using your late picks in a pack well. Um, I feel like sometimes people get a little lazy when they stop seeing good or exciting cards and they start just picking on color cards. I think it's pretty good to draft off color cards over bad on color cards. If good off color cards. If you're not going to play a card or be excited about it, you're going to get so many playables in modern sets, right? They're so strong. You have 39 picks. You only need to be play about 23 of them, sometimes a little more if you're playing lands. So you have 16 picks where you can speculate, or at the end of packs you might just get stuff that you can't play, but you have about 16 picks. That's a lot of leeway, so you can draft off-color stuff a decent amount. So rather than draft a card in your colors that you're not going to want to put in your deck, or that's probably just not, if it does make your deck, you're not going to be happy with it. Why not draft a good card in a different color that gives you flexibility? Obviously, if there's no good cards in the pack, that's not an option. But I really think people should think more about, don't draft cards you don't want to play. Um, so, for instance, like if I'm in red and I have a few red cards so far in say pack one, and I see a rough shot duo and a Daggerfang duo, I might just pick the Daggerfang. It's a more powerful card. I don't really want to play Roughshot Duo in my red decks for the most part, unless I have, a specific reason. It doesn't seem to, perform super well. Daggerfang Duo is a pretty powerful card, and I could pivot into black, and then I'd be happy to have this Daggerfang Duo. Why pick a card I'm not going to want to play, even if I'm in that color, over a card that I would play if I was in the other color? Why not give myself the flexibility in pack 2 and 3 to bail out into black and have a starting point? If I see a Season of Loss, for instance, which is one of the best rares in the set, maybe it's a Mythic, I don't know really. I might want to just say, okay, I'm in black now in pack 2, but if I have a couple of, decent black cards, I have that option. I have that off ramp. So, and here's the other. I chose to use duos for these examples. So here's Skyskipper Duo and Life Creed Duo. I had a deck the other day. I posted, I think. Well, I had 6 Life Creed Duos in my deck, and I said, how many is too many? It turns out 6 wasn't too many. I think we got 7 wins in that one. I guess spoiler. Um, Skyscraper Duo is a pretty good card. Obviously it's best in the Fogs deck because the Birds deck isn't really a thing. I think it's best in the Fogs deck. It's probably also good in blue black. Um, blue red, avoid that. But if I had 6 Skyscraper Duos, I'm probably not playing them. So if I saw the 5th Skyscraper Duo, I just shouldn't take it because I'm not going to play it. I'll just take a different card in a different color that I'm not necessarily playing, because then I have that optionality. Don't pick cards you're not going to play. And then finally we have Baker's Bane and Tree God Duo. Um, and this is a similar thing, right? These are in the same colors. But, these are both very good cards, right? And if I see both of these cards early, these cards have almost, I looked up to the win rates, almost the same exact stats. So if you see both of these, you're going to have a more flexible deck if you pick the Baker's Bane Duo than if you pick the Tree God Duo, because you'll play the 4 Baker's Bane Duos, but you might not play the 4 Tree God Duos. And if you pick the Baker's Bane Duo over the Tree God Duo, next time you can pick the Tree God Duo over a weaker card, rather than having to pick that weaker 2-drop to complement your curve. So one question I ask, like to ask myself, and I see this a lot when if you look at like deck reviews on Reddit, sometimes people post their decks so other people can review them, and they'll say something like, "Oh, after pack 2, I was playing black red." And the question I always sort of wonder is like, why? Why are you playing black? You said you were playing black red, but who made that? You made that decision, obviously. The drafter did. But what made them so committed, right? That no one's telling them they have to. They got some cards, but they could pivot if they wanted to. They felt committed in their mind. And it's important to ask why you're playing a color. Like, what is drawing me to this color? I think limited resources. I don't know if they still use the grading system like A, B, C, D, F probably. So they talk about the A's are the bombs, the B's draw you to the color, and the C's are just filler, right? So, the B's and A's are what draw you to a color. The rest doesn't, right? So imagine a red-black. We're talking about red-black for this example. If I have a Gev Scorch Scale, I am, I'm playing the Wizards deck for that, right? I'm looking to play specifically that color combination, specifically Lizards. I'm pretty committed to that because it's a very powerful card in that deck. Um, and I don't have a lot of flexibility to pivot out of that. So I'm pretty committed if I have a Gev. Obviously, I could get off of it, but Gev is a card that is a decent amount of commitment. Fireglass Mentor, right? Fireglass Mentor is a little bit weaker. Fireglass, yeah, is a little bit weaker. Obviously, same cost as Gev, but I'm less committed if I have a Fireglass Mentor because it's a little bit weaker. The power level, the commitment's the expected commitment's the same, but the power level isn't there. So I'm less committed. I'm willing to switch off, right? Say a card like Thoughtstalker Warlock. Similar power level as, say, Fireglass Mentor, But I'm not nearly as committed to lizards if I have a Thoughtstalker Warlock, mostly because it's just a black card. People might see it as a secret gold card, but if you look at its performance, and even if you just play it, I think it performs well in almost every black color combination. Maybe not as well, but pretty well. So I'm not nearly as committed if I have a Thoughtstalker Warlock as I am with a Fireglass Mentor. And this isn't even talking about what cards you should pick. Like, obviously, I would almost always, I think, pick a Thoughtstalker over the Fireglass Mentor for that reason. But just once you have those, if I have a Thoughtstalker Warlock and I see, a great green black card, I'm not going to say, oh, I need to be in lizards. I'm going to be saying, okay, I got a black card. Now I see a green black card. I have some optionality here. So then the next thing is filler doesn't count, right? If I have 10 Agate Blade Assassins, that's not pulling me to Lizards. Obviously, I'm running out of picks. I don't know why I picked 10 of those. Same with Cinder and Cutthroat, right? These are just cards. These are just filler. They'll end up in my deck because I need to play 40 cards, but I'm not going to play Lizards because I have these. These might help facilitate. They're not terrible cards. Then, they're not unplayables. They're playables. That's all they are, though. They're cards you will play, right? So that's like you shouldn't say, okay, I have five mediocre lizard cards, I'm committed to the lizards deck, because why would you be? You don't want to play those lizards. You want to play the blue bomb that you open in the next pack. Maybe not blue in this set. The green bomb, the green season that you open in the next pack. That's what you want to play. You just have these in in your pool right now. And then finally, how much does a card's value change if you swap decks, right? So even if I have a pile of black cards, does it get worse or better if I go into different decks? I think Saver, when I looked at it, is actually, sort of at its worst in this deck. It actually gets better. It's a black card that's maybe at its worst in Lizards. So it maybe gets better if I swap. So maybe I'm saying, okay, I have Savers. I'll definitely play it in this deck. It's a very strong card. But it actually gets a little better. So maybe I'm sort of leaning out of Lizards if I have a bunch of Saviors as my black cards. On the other hand, if I have Scales, Scales is actually good. It turns out Scales is a card that you might think is just a Lizard card. Turns out it's good in almost every black deck. But it actually gets a little bit worse in some of the other black decks. So you might say, okay, Scales is a black card that is, sort of keeping me into the Lizards deck. So Scales is, so when you talk about changing, it's not just can I play this or can I not play it? It's does this get better or worse if I play a different combination, different color combination. And then like what could make you switch, right? So like what's going to pull you in or out of colors? So a lot of times, I'll stay open for the first pack. And then if my second pack, pick one or even pick two, right? That's when you see, rares and mythics. And those are really the strong cards that I think can pull you in and out of colors a lot of times. So like imagine I'm playing green blue and I open in my second, pack two, pick one, I see Season of the Bold, right? That is probably not a strong enough card for me to switch. Okay. If I have good green blue stuff, if I'm liking that deck, I'm probably just going to say no. Season of Bold is sort of an unremarkable type of card. It's a rare. A lot of people just see the rare. They see the cycle. They think this is great. It turns out if you've played with this card, it's fine, but it's nothing special. Season of Burrow, very good card, right? If I'm in frogs, I might say, can some of these frogs also work in rabbits? Can I make a bunch of rabbits? Can I play this season the burrow? Can I move into that? What am I losing if I switch out of the blue, for instance? Um, I kind of want to get into season of bow, so that could make me switch out of whatever I have in the first pack. Obviously it depends what it is, right? And if I see season of loss, I'm really saying this is probably better than all of one of my colors. This is an amazing card. It's probably going to be better than all that, blue or green filler I picked up. Maybe I had, if I had a blue bomb but then picked a bunch of green filler, maybe I'm looking to blue black now. My pawn profit will still be there, just double blue at this point. So, think about like what's going to cause you to switch out. If you see a new card in a different color, is it just better than the five cards of, the colors you were in? It can be. Like this a seasonal loss, I would take over five mediocre blue cards because what are those really doing? I can get filler because I have 39 picks to get 23 cards. So that's the end. I know this is a short video. Maybe it felt long. I don't know. It's supposed to be the beginning of a series. It's just about being flexible. I have a few more planned if people like this. Hopefully they do. And yeah, the basic idea is that most of us aren't going to be pro players, and a lot of the Magic content, I think, is not super actionable, and ends up being good on entertainment, but not as helpful if you're trying to get better. If you've listened to 10 episodes of a given podcast, I think you've probably reached the point where you're not getting a lot better. So I think sometimes you need to look at it from a perspective of what's like the minimum amount of information I need to consume to really make the jump to get to the point where I can understand something I haven't been in the past. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good one.